everybody. Scotty Milas here. All Things Considered Franchising, powered by Scott Milas, franchisecoach.com. All Things Considered Franchising is a podcast dedicated to the franchising industry. Young and experienced entrepreneurs looking to venture into the franchising space to get educated, learn, to understand what franchising is all about. Scott Milas, franchisecoach.com is a consulting company where we offer education and guidance, introducing brands that fit, helping you build that roadmap to explore franchising. The services and the guidance and education that we provide are at absolutely no cost to you. I have a very interesting guest with us today, and somebody over the last 18 months, it's almost 2 years, believe it or not, that I've gotten to know, and I've actually gotten to know his family. And Randy Smith is our guest today, and he is just an entrepreneur at heart. The corporate world now in franchising has been knee deep in helping his family get involved in business and start building their legacy. Randy, welcome to the show.
How you doing, Scott? By the way, what an introduction. What a professional outfit.
Thank you. It took me several months to perfect it, but I appreciate that. It's hey, listen, I really appreciate you taking some time, these 10, 15 minutes to speak with us, because I know you're a busy guy. But you are what I can classify as a very successful, independent, corporate individual that started a company from the ground up. And from what the story I have learned over the last couple of years, there were a lot of bumpy roads. Ended up building it, and somebody walked in, private equity walked in, and kind of knocked on your door and conversations. And you're still involved in the business. You're still playing an integral part on the leadership of the business. Your journey and story, and now helping your family getting into another business, especially in looking at franchising, is an interesting story. So maybe take 30, 45 a minute here and tell us about this journey, because I think it's going to be intriguing to our listeners.
Got it. Well, Scott, I'm on the disc profile. I'm what they call a high I. Which is like an influencer, and I use about 90,000 words a day, sometimes gusting to 120. So I'll try to keep this in 45 seconds.
Take your time, Randy. Take your time.
So my dad was an entrepreneur. He never had a real job. He became a home builder. Started working as a carpenter, became a home builder, built a home for himself, sold it before it was done, and then 20 years later, he was one of the largest home builders in California. He retired and moved to Florida. And when I got out of high school, he said, don't bother with college. Come down here and I'll lend you some money and we're going to start a business, or you're going to start a business. Ended up being a family business. So I moved to Florida in 1983 and he lent me the money and I started the business, and I lost all the money promptly. And then he came in and worked with me in the business. And we worked together for 35 years and then sold one of the largest flooring companies in the country. And had our exit to private equity in 2019. And during that 35-year career, I had to learn everything, build everything from the ground up. When we did our first carpet job back in 1983, I had to invoice the customer. So I'm like, well, what's an invoice? What do we want it to look like? I mean, it absolutely, the great thing about forming a business is it's like your own country and you get to make all the rules. The hard thing is you have to do everything yourself from the beginning, and I had no experience in it. We had a lot of times that we were near bankruptcy or an insolvent, and somehow we just lived to fight another day, and it ended up being a great family success story, including my brother, my father, my stepmother. My kids are all involved now and have been for years. So it's just been a good entrepreneurial journey for a guy like me who wakes up every morning ready to take on, whatever the task is at hand.
That's interesting. And, the calling to continue or at least help your family get involved in a business now that the business wasn't, quote, yours on paper. I mean, you're still the business. I mean, you're still part of it. but I guess it would have been you. Did you ever contemplate going out and being that visionary entrepreneur again and starting a business for your family that wasn't a franchise?
Yeah. So what happened, as is the nature of things, right? Once the dust settled and we liquefied the business, now it was okay. So what's the next thing? Yes, I'm still the president of this company. I've been here for 4 years. You know, it's hard for them to get rid of me, I guess. I still add some value here, but I wanted to help my kids create that kind of opportunity where they could build a business for their legacy. And but what I realized is the industry we're in is a tough one, right? It's construction, a really tough industry, and we had a lot of hard knocks through it. So the idea of going and starting another business from scratch and designing what the invoice is going to look like, and all that stuff, it didn't really appeal to me. And so just for fun, one day I started poking around looking at franchising. And as a guy who built a business from scratch for 35 years, I would have been able to accomplish what I accomplished in probably 15 if I had had all the right tools. And because I had to build them along the way. So I started Googling franchise opportunities, and I started researching them. And this is before I even talked to my kids about it. I just thought this would be a good way for them to build a legacy, right? And so we went down the road with, pizza joint and several other different avenues. And what I quickly learned, and this sounds like a commercial for Scotty Milas, but what I quickly learned is I didn't know the first thing about franchising. So yes, I knew that the franchise was going to teach me the next business and give me all the tools to be successful, but I didn't know how to evaluate them. So I Googled franchise coach or whatever, and I found you online, and I emailed you, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, the way you interviewed my kids and mentored them along the way and presented all these different deals. I don't know if you know, Scotty, but originally my wife, she's a general contractor and a real estate broker, and she was building custom houses, and she's just getting to the point where she doesn't want to do that anymore. And we travel a lot. And when she saw what I was doing with this franchise thing and talking with you and getting the kids involved, she said, hey, let me look into that. And then, as you know, the rest is history. Now my wife is in the franchise business and has bought several licenses, is working on developing them along with my kids and their spouses. So I feel good that what my dad did for me, I'm kind of helping my kids and my wife do, as like a family. But we're not going to the school of hard knocks and starting from ground zero. And you helped us along that journey to find what suited us. And of course, what suited us, something that has to do with real estate and construction, which is my family's wheelhouse, right?
Right.
So we're not doing food, or recycling or solar. We're in the field that we're comfortable with. And I know that there's hundreds, if not thousands, of different franchise opportunities, and there's the right one for everyone. And you need a coach like you, because you showed us all these opportunities. And when I almost feel like you teased us and you gave us all these things you knew wouldn't fit. And then when you showed us this one, we said, oh yeah, we're sold.
Well, yes, not really, but what's really interesting, and I'm going to put you on the spot for a second, and I don't mean it in a negative sense, but is it safe to say, in working with a consultant and doing it yourself, that the direction you initially thought you were going to go in and where you ended up when you started to put yourself in the position to learn and educate, and probably looking at things that you never knew existed where you ended up was totally different than where you were going?
Completely. I had, like a lot of people, I not that I thought I knew it all, but I just figured this is the direction we're going. This is what I want to do. And we kind of marched that direction. And then when you got a hold of us and interviewed us, I mean, look, there's people for every industry, right? Like I have a friend who owns a restaurant, and he wouldn't do anything but owning a restaurant. Running a restaurant in his DNA. He's made for it. Whereas for me, I figured out that that's not me at all. I don't want to
Right.
be responsible for a business Saturday and Sunday until 2 a.m. with a liquor license. That wasn't me. But it was for him. But really, when you kind of swung the compass, and we looked in all different directions, and we settled in on this real estate based business, and it just was a slam dunk. And I don't know that we would have found it without you. In fact, I was quite sure we wouldn't have. And you were instrumental in that. The other thing I would say, Scotty, is that you were also like no pressure. I view you more as, you say coach, and I think that's a good example, because you're not in there doing it for us. You're just coaching us and giving us advice and a little guidance. And it worked really well. And the other thing is you stay in touch with us, and when something good happens, you're like you're like our best fan.
That's interesting. When you start, when we finally found kind of that category for you, and you started to go through the investigative process with your family, the phone calls, what did you learn, or what guidance could you give some of our listeners on the things that somebody should be looking out for, the questions you're asking? I mean, I know that you and I talked a lot, and your kids and I talked a lot, Lenny and I talked a lot about what the things you should be asking, but what's your best guidance for someone that really maybe has found something that they're interested in, to kind of get to that point where you're making that validated decision and not that emotional decision? I mean, the relationship with the brand, obviously the numbers have to make sense, but is there any guidance you can share? I mean, to get to that point?
So I will tell you that what I found interesting is whenever you're being pitched anything in the world, right? I mean, I ran a big business with 1,200 employees for a long time, and I was always pitched something, right? And whether it was banking services or, I mean, just whatever, right? And what I found interesting is when I started to get, quote, pitched these different franchises, I kept trying to figure out, what are they hiding? What's behind the curtain? What am I not knowing now that I'm going to find out later down the road? And I was leery. What I've come to realize is franchisors, yes, you're purchasing a license from them, but they are interviewing you much harder than you are interviewing them. They want to bring the right people into the brand that they believe are going to be successful and that aren't going to rock the boat or muddy the water, so to speak. And then when it comes to the pitch, it's really not a pitch. In fact, they give you a document of every franchisee in the system with their cell phone number. You can call anybody and talk to franchisees directly and say, would you do this again? What did they not explain to you? What did they not disclose to you? And, once you call 5 or 10 people, you start to realize
that picture gets painted.
Yeah, the picture gets painted, and they're not trying to pull anything over on you, right? They're not just in it to sell you a license for $12,000 or $100,000 or whatever the license is. They're in it for the long term. And I found that they were giving way more information than I would have ever known what to request when they did their disclosures. And the fact that you can call every owner and everybody's happy to talk. And by the way, it's not all positive. You do hear,
right,
I didn't know this was going to be so much work. I didn't know accounting was so hard. I didn't know, I had to be there every day, or I was never there and I should have been there. I mean, you hear it all. So I think that almost out of anything that you can do, you get a really good understanding of what the end result's going to be through the discovery process. And I think the franchisors, I know there's a lot of legal requirements of disclosure,
right.
but I think they do a really good job not trying to sell you, but trying to educate you.
Well, I think that's important. And I think in all fairness to the process, and due diligence that you and your family went through to make your decision, you also connected with the ownership group. You kind of connected with Jason and Brandon and really started to really kind of make sure that there was that compatibilities that, we may not agree all the time, but you know what? We got to be able to have that discussion. So I think you develop or at least learn that the relationship part with the franchisor is very important. I know we talked about that early in our process that we talked that, hey, look, I would say get to know them. I mean, these are people that you're going to be connected with for, whether it's 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, or whenever you decide to exit. I mean, is that a crucial when you're looking at a franchise, get comfortable with the group and the systems?
Yeah, so you teed that up nicely. I do some other seminars on finance and things like that for different groups, and I have this simple, stupid line that says relationships matter, and it's not the relationship with your customer; those matter. It's the relationship with your employee. It's the relationship with your bank. It's the relationship with your accountant. It's the relationship with your franchisor. It's entrepreneurs, if you've been an employee your whole life, W-2 employee, a lot of people when they start their own business can't wait to be the boss. When you become the boss, you realize you're the boss of nobody. You're spinning all the plates and trying to make everybody happy and work together. And you find that you're really working for everybody. And the only way that works is if you build a great relationship and connection with each of them. I will tell you that because I knew that about business, I went above and beyond reaching out to the franchisors and the management team. My wife and I flew to Salt Lake where their headquarters in. We went to their office. This is back during COVID when nobody was traveling. I wasn't going to buy a franchise without meeting them.
Exactly.
And so my wife and I have a home in Park City. So every time we go to Salt Lake, we go visit them. And guess what happens? Not only do you get to know them, but you actually build a friendship. And we built a really nice relationship with them. We care about their success of their brand. Their success is our success and vice versa. They care deeply about helping us be successful. And if you can have fun and enjoy working with those people that you're committed to working with for 10, 20 years, like you said, it just makes it that much more enjoyable.
Right.
And smooths out any bumps in the road. And we haven't really had any bumps in the process, but I will tell you that when there's been a question mark, they go out of their way to try to make sure that we are well served and taken care of.
That is great. One last subject. I promise you we keep this short, sweet, and simple. So one last subject. There are people out there that are going to be that are listening to us and contemplating whether they should pick up the phone and investigate and research business ownership. And then business ownership, starting their own business as an independent and possibly looking at a franchise. Is it safe, Randy? Are there any encouraging words that you can tell people being a successful entrepreneur yourself that it's okay to pick up the phone and start learning and put yourself in that position, but it's okay to say, no, it's not the right time? I mean, what kind of guidance can you give someone that's really just kind of thinking about it right now, but really just hasn't put that right or left foot forward?
Well, I will tell you that it's never too late to back out until you sign on the dotted line and wire the money. Okay.
Right.
So, and the other thing is the investigation process is free. It's a lot of fun. And the other thing is, especially for people, now I've met a lot of franchisees that are coming out of the corporate world and they want to enhance their retirement. So they actually start their own business, get into franchising when they're in their 50s or early 60s, which I think is awesome, especially if it's like an absentee owner model and not, too time consuming. I think that's great. But one thing I can tell you is it's a bit of an adventure. It's fun. It's fun to learn new stuff. And it all starts by starting your research. And the other thing is it's never too early to start. A lot of people ask me, how do I transition from W-2 employee to self-employed? And I say, side hustle, right? Educate yourself, start to learn something, start to get it going. You can keep your job. I mean, my wife is starting these businesses. And, my son, bought a franchise through you in property management. He's got his business going, but everybody was doing something else when we started that process, right? So don't wait until you retire or till the time is right. That's like, don't wait to have a baby till the time is right. Just have a you'll work it out.
That's
Yeah, I
great.
would say sooner rather than later, because I never met anybody who says I should have waited. I always met people who said I should have started sooner.
Right, right. I'm a believer that, put yourself in a position where you're going to feel a little uncomfortable. That's okay, because that's how you learn more. When you want to know, you ask more questions, and questions are great, especially when you're investing in yourself and you're and putting money on the table. I mean, it's no different. Randy, this is, you and your family have become good friends of ours. I hope when we get down there again in Florida, I'll be able to bring my wife with us and sharing a dinner, because that dinner we had a couple of months ago was just outstanding. It was just a lot of fun with you and the kids, and so I appreciate
Well,
your time.
Scott, what you forgot to say was there was a sneaky pop-up bar behind the restaurant, and Scotty Milas went in there and showed us his dance moves for another couple of hours. It was great. Great time.
Well, I appreciate your time, Randy. It's you offer a lot of wisdom and guidance, and I told somebody the other day, if you follow the book of Randy, without giving into details, I said, the chances are you're going to be very, very successful. So I appreciate your time. Any closing thoughts? Anything you want to add before we go?
Scott, if anybody wants to reach out to me, share my information, and if I can help anybody in a journey, I'd be happy to.
All right. Thanks, Randy. This is Scotty Milas, All Things Considered Franchising, powered by ScottMilasFranchiseCoach.com. I can be reached at Scott@ScottMilasFranchiseCoach.com as my email address, or 860-751-9126 direct office line, or visit my website, ScottMilasFranchiseCoach.com. Until next time, this is Scotty Milas. Have a great day.